Price. Hey, Mr. Price. Before we begin, I see names signed up under a case that has been deferred for today. So just to save people time, can I hear that? Case number 24-003 is deferred until next month, possibly?
We got it for next month. Yes, that's when we have them tentatively scheduled for next month.
Off the
Recording in progress.
all on record. Staff, are you ready?
Yes.
I'd like to call to order the April 1st, 2024 Richland County Planning Commission meeting. Staff, please confirm the following. In accordance with the Freedom of Information Act, a copy of the agenda was sent to the news media, persons requesting notification, and posted on the bulletin board located in the County Administration Building. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Staff, can you please take attendance for today's meeting?
All right. Those attendance for the Monday, April 1st, 2024 Richland County Planning Commission meeting. Yonke,
Here.
Frierson, Johnson, Duffy,
Here.
Metz,
Here.
Durant,
Here.
Taylor,
Here.
Sirks,
Here.
Grady.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Great, thank you. Thank you, staff. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the April 1st, 2024 Richland County Planning Commission meeting. As planning commissioners, we are concerned residents of Richland County who volunteer our time to thoroughly review and make recommendations to County Council. Our recommendations are to approve or deny zoning map amendment requests. Per Title VI, Chapter 29 of the SE Code of Laws, Planning Commission may also prepare and revise plans and programs for the development or redevelopment of unincorporated portions of the county. The county's land development code rewrite process conducted last year was an example of this. Once again, we are a recommending body to County Council, and they will conduct their own public hearing and take official votes to approve or deny map amendments and text amendments on a future date to be published by the county. Council typically holds zoning public hearings on the fourth Tuesday of the month. Please check the county's website for updated agendas, dates, and times. Please take note of the following guidelines for today's meeting. Please turn off or silence any cell phones. Audience members may quietly come and go as needed. Applicants are allowed up to 2 minutes to make statements. Citizens signed up to speak are allowed up to 2 minutes each. Redundant comments should be minimized. Please only address remarks to the commission and do not expect the commission to respond to questions from the speaker in a back and forth style. That is not the purpose of the meeting. Please, no audience speaker exchanges. No audience demonstrations or other disruptions to the meeting are permitted, nor are comments from anyone other than the speaker at the podium. Please remember the meeting is being recorded. Please speak into the microphone and give your name and address. Abusive language is inappropriate and will not be tolerated. Please don't voice displeasure or frustration at a recommendation while the Planning Commission is still conducting business. If you have any questions or concerns, you may contact the Richland County Planning Department staff down here. This now moves us to number 3 on our agenda today, which is additions, deletions to the agenda. Are there any motions for the additions or deletions to the agenda? Hearing none, let's also deal with any motions to amend the agenda. Commissioner, staff?
I'll just state, just again for the record, that case 24-003MA has been deferred under request of the applicant. And also case, what you have listed as item 5B4, which is case 24-005MA, has been deferred administratively.
Thank you, staff. I also see a minor typo for number 5B3. Believe we're going to go not discussing RU to GC, but the new code RT to GC. We need to take any motions or vote with that? No?
Yes, I would.
Yeah, you would? Okay. All right, as the chair, I make a motion to update our agenda to show that case 5B2 was administratively deferred or by the applicant. Number 3 should be RT to GC, and case number 5B4 is deferred as well. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, here, second. Commissioner Durant over there, sure. Please take a vote, staff.
All right, those in favor of the additions, deletions to the agenda, Yonke,
Yes.
Duffy,
Yes.
Metz,
Yes.
Durant,
Yes.
Taylor, Sirks,
Yes.
Grady.
Yes.
All right, motion passes.
Thank you, staff. Moving on to number 4 would be approval of minutes. The staff provided the commission with copies of the transcript of March 4th, 2024's meeting. Do any commission members have any comments or concerns regarding these transcripts? Hearing none, the chair makes a motion to approve the minutes unless there's an objection. Do I have a second? Second from Commissioner Metz. Staff, please take a vote.
All right, those in favor of the approval of the March 4th, 2024 minutes, Yonke,
Aye.
Duffy,
Aye.
Metz, Durant,
Aye.
Taylor,
Aye.
Sirks,
Aye.
Grady.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you, staff. Now move on to number 5 on our agenda, the consent agenda. The consent agenda is an action item that allows the commission to approve road names and map amendment requests where the staff recommends approval and either no one from the public has signed up to speak against the amendment or no member of the commission is in need of further discussion on the request. Today I'm going to ask Commissioner Metz, do we have anyone signed up against any map amendments today?
No, we do not.
Do not. Thank you. Fellow commissioners, would anyone like to engage in discussion on any of the map amendments that would still be on the consent agenda?
I did have one correction.
Commissioner Taylor.
First one, case number 23-045MA, under the explanation on page 1. Sorry, yeah. Proposed zoning should be R6, is that correct?
Good questions for staff, yes.
Yes. Yes, is correct.
Commissioner Taylor, would you like further discussion?
No, that's it. If it was R5, I was gonna ask about the details, but since it's R6, the details match with R6.
Okay. Chair makes a motion to amend the consent agenda so that we remove case 5B2, which is deferred, and 5B4, which is also deferred, but approve 5B1, 3, and 5. Do I have a second?
Mr.
Yeah.
Chair, did y'all also include 5A, the road names?
And 5A, the road names for approval. Thank you, Mr. Price. Second? Do I have a second? Second from Commissioner Metz, also heard Commissioner Grady. Staff, can you please take a vote for the consent agenda?
All right, so we have a motion for the approval of consent agenda, which would include items 5A, road names, 5B1, 5B3, and 5B5. The motion again was for approval. Those in favor, Yonke,
Aye.
Duffy,
Aye.
Metz,
Aye.
Durant,
Aye.
Taylor,
Aye.
Sirks,
Aye.
Grady.
Aye.
All right, motion passes.
Thank you, staff. So for the public out there, that consent agenda just approved those remaining items on our agenda for today. And that will go to County Council as a Planning Commission recommendation of approval at their next zoning public hearing.
And that would be the 23rd of April at 7 p.m.
Thank you, Mr. Price. This moves us already to item number 6 on our agenda. Other items, which is the Olympia Mill District Historic Overlay. And I'll pass this back to Mr. Price.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As stated, we are looking to incorporate a number of the standards and guidelines from the Capital Mill District Plan, Capital City Mill District Plan, and also the Olympia Mill Village architectural design plans into an overlay, a neighborhood character overlay district. Essentially, what this would do is put more requirements versus guidelines for development within the Olympia area. Previously, we've kind of gone over each one of the items for the neighborhood character overlay to one. The first section, or the first part of it, was to establish that the minimum requirements to enact this overlay district have been met. And we went over that previously. And so where we are now is it's on page 36 of your packet, which is the standards for the neighborhood character overlay district. Give you all a moment. Okay. All right, so previously, staff identified that these standards could be found within the overlay, the Olympia Mill Village architectural design guidelines, and also within the Capital Mill District area and corridor plan, also along with the newly adopted Richland County Land Development Code. So we identify where those could be found. So what you have before you is more the specifics of what that language states. So what you have that's highlighted in yellow are actually those what the standards state. Some of them are pretty forthright, and there are others here that maybe we may want to discuss some more language of how it will be incorporated into the overlay designation. If you would like, we can kind of go over each of the items, and if you see any particular typos or have any questions about the language, you kind of want to use this as a good discussion point, please feel free to chime in and ask any questions of staff. Okay. All right.
And Mr. Price?
Yeah, and hopefully what we will look to do kind of going forward is if, as a planning commission, you feel you're in agreement with, well, if you're in agreement with what staff has proposed, or even you have your own recommendations that you vote on, then what we would do is prepare this as a document of how it will look within our land development code and bring that back before you, so for your, your review. After that, what we would like to do is we'll probably skip a month in between. So let's say we were able to come back in May, we'll probably skip June and come back in July. What that would do from a staff standpoint was allow us to work with the city of Columbia, who are our neighbors in this particular area, and also get their input. Also allow us to meet with the residents within that area, hold a couple of community meetings. We have to have a chance to notify everyone of potential changes, specifically as it comes to their individual properties. So we want to give a chance to have community meetings to address what it is we're doing, also what language is proposed, and taking their input, and also give them notification of when this item will be coming back before the planning commission and ultimately before county council. So again, taking a little bit of time, but I think this is probably appropriate, especially for the first time that we're doing this, but also we want to make sure that everyone is aware. So everybody in that community is aware of what changes are occurring. Okay. Any questions?
Questions for staff? Yes, Commissioner Grady.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One question I had in looking through this is on pages 40 and 41, there's discussion of uses, and it mentions R4, R6, and MU1 as the relevant zoning types in the property. But it would appear from the map that we were provided on page 33 that there are some parcels that are, it looks like M1 as well. Are those not inside the district, or do we just need to make sure that those are included as a fourth eligible land use type, or am I misunderstanding something?
Yeah, so if you would look at, there's a kind of a black border that actually identifies the area that are part of the overlay that we're discussing. Those that are outside of that, were not part of the overlay designation. And if it's in all white, yeah, that little, some of the purple, some of the heavy industrial. Did you say heavy industrial, or did you say?
Looks like it looks like there are some M1 parcels in pink at the northeast corner.
Yes, sir. I did see those. Oh, might have been a bit of oversight, so I apologize. We can include that also within there.
Okay.
Onto it. So, yeah, thank you.
That's all I had, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Grady. Sparks a good question though, staff. Would M1 be a appropriate zoning type for them to continue to use or add to?
Well, M1 is a legacy designation. As you remember, I think what that actually came as a recommendation from the Planning Commission to keep the M1 zoning designation. So I think more toward the question that you're asking is, do we want to be proactive with this zoning? I would recommend at this time that we just kind of keep the zoning as is. And I think there may be other times, especially as we kind of go forward with our comprehensive plan, to start looking to make a determination if the county, the Planning Commission wants to meet recommendations of proactive zoning throughout the county.
I think my question or statement with this one is, do we need to add verbiage that M1 is okay where it's at,
Oh,
but
otherwise-
not to continue?
No, sir, because, well, I think maybe we could make that a bullet point. within there, because again, going by what's in our current land development code, it's understood that M1 is a legacy designation allowed to remain, but you can't make a request for it.
Yes.
So if you feel that that language should also be included in here, we will be more than happy to include that.
Thank you.
Yeah, and also, again, thank you, Mr. Grady, for bringing this to our attention. We'll also need to include the HI, because there seems to be a little bit of kind of a bleed over from, looks like I think that's the quarry out there. So we'll also include that language for that area. Okay. All right, so if you want, we can kind of go over this. I can go as fast as y'all would like for me to.
Commissioners, would we like to hear more from staff about this? Go over each one?
Oh, well, I was gonna go over it. It was just a matter of
Oh, okay.
how quickly you want
Go
me to
ahead.
go over it, so. All right, so we'll start on page 36. 4A, for lot sizes. As stated, that we felt that the current zonings that within that area would be sufficient of identifying what the standard lot sizes would be for that area. As you see, we have the R4, the R6, and the MU1, and we will also need to include the LI zoning designation, excuse me, the M1 zoning designation, which is light industrial, and also the HI zoning designation in this category. Okay, any questions? Okay, go to 4B, lot width. The same, we'll use the zoning designations, and we will definitely need to include the M1 and HI also. But as you note, that 50 feet is the minimum lot width for all of the residential zoning designations. Then we'll leave that the industrial, which would be the M1 and the light, and the HI would have any, they would have a minimum lot width. And actually going back to 4A or lot size. Okay, go to 4C, location of proposed buildings and additions or additions. So stated primary building shall be located in the middle of the lot. Garages and accessory structures shall be in the rear of the primary building. Also, additions shall be made toward the rear of the property. They shall not align with the front facade nor project in front of the original front facade. So that would be for any new buildings or additions. Okay, question? And again, I want to go back and reiterate that the intent of this is to try to continue and support the historical architectural guidelines within the Olympia area also. 4D, required yards. The front yard setback shall align with the other historic facade setbacks on the block. Side yard setback shall be equal on both sides of the primary building. All right, 4E, building height. Historic buildings shall be limited to 1 or 2 stories, or 35 feet, depending on the original housing type, and that 35 feet will be added to it. Also, a two-story addition to a 1-story building shall be built at the rear of the historic building. The roof height of the new addition shall be as low as possible to minimize visual impact. On 4F, building size for principal and accessory structures. Building footprints are simple design, typically rectangular or L-shaped, depending on the historic housing type. The building footprint, bullet point 2, the building footprint of a new building shall reflect that of the house across the street if the house is not a historic building. The building footprint of a new build shall not be the same as that of the houses on the other side if those houses are historic buildings. Bullet point 3, on large lots, the new massing shall be at the same scale of the houses along the street. and there's an illustration that's found on pages 32 and 45 of the Olympia Mill Architectural Design Guidelines. Now, one thing I would like to point out, and that's one of the questions, one of the conversations staff had, is that what looks like working with county council, that we will need to have an architectural review body for this particular overlay in this area. And so there may be some things that aren't very specific from a staff standpoint of what the requirements would be, but would fall to the architectural review body to determine compliance with the objectives of this overlay. Any questions? Okay.
Right.
That's what they're here for.
Would that be a review body appointed by council?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and so there'll be some, I don't think we have any architectural review bodies, at least during the time I've been here, so that will be something new that we will be creating for this particular overlay designation. All right, for G, building orientation, new builds shall be oriented the same as the building across the street, as if that building is historic. So one of the things, recurring themes that you will see is that the historic designation of a structure or the adjacent structures may dictate orientation, height, and build in this area. For H, exterior building materials and colors, historic houses, damaged walls shall be repaired with like materials that match the weather material of the original structure in color and texture. Only sections that are deteriorated beyond repair shall be replaced. Wood or cementitious fiberboard siding must match the original siding in size and scale. Aluminum and vinyl siding are not allowed. Bullet point 2 for this, additions to historic houses. Additions shall only be made of wood lap siding or fiber cement board siding. Plywood or metal siding is not allowed. Differentiating the exterior wall materials of the addition from the existing house by using a different compatible material can be accepted if the scale is maintained. Again, these may be items that have to go before the newly established architectural review body. New builds, exterior wall material of new construction shall be constructed on materials that can be found on other houses within the neighborhood. Primary building materials such as wood need to be used in comparable ways that they were used on historic buildings. For example, lap wood siding was historically used in a horizontal pattern. Using lap wood siding vertically is not allowed. Does anybody have any questions? Does everybody know what lap wood is? We had to look it up. So we'll be more than happy to pull it up if there's something that y'all will need. For I, building roof, line, and pitch. Boy. Turn some of this over. Roof shapes on historic houses shall be either side gable, front gable, or cross gable. There are also hip roofs and shed roofs on porches. The original roof shape and slope as seen from the street shall be maintained. Multiple peaks and complex roofs are not allowed. Dormers and decorative gable ends are not allowed. Roof materials are duplicate the appearance and profile of historic materials whenever possible. The color of the new roofing material shall be comparable to the color of the historic material, and metal roofs are not allowed. Roofs on additions shall not be visible above the ridgeline of the original roof. If it is not possible for the roof to be below the original ridgeline, the new roof shall be a simple roof style gable or hip. The slope of the roof shall match the slope of the existing house. Roof materials shall match or be similar to roof materials on the existing house in color, scale, and texture. Roofs on new builds shall be simple, front gable, side gable, reflecting the character of the roofs of the existing houses within the neighborhood. Multiple peaks on roofs are not allowed. Dormers and eyebrow windows are not allowed. Garages at garage locations, which is 4J. Garages shall be placed in the rear of the lot behind the primary building. Carports shall be located on the side of the primary building and shall be placed a minimum of 10 feet from the front facade. Building foundation treatment, which is 4K. Historic structure foundations have pier and beam construction. Foundation skirts of historic buildings shall be made of wooden lattice, brick, concrete block, or stucco sheathing. 4L, front porches. Historic houses and old mills. The original front porch elements such as columns, balustrades, if I'm saying that correctly, decorative trim shall be retained. Damaged element shall be repaired whenever possible. The element deteriorated beyond repair shall only be replaced by using materials that match the original. If original porch features are missing, there must be sufficient documentation to accurately produce missing elements. Addition of porch elements that were not historically present is not allowed. Enclosing front porches is not allowed, but screening is acceptable. If a front porch is screened, it shall be constructed so that the primary architectural elements are still readily visible from the street. The addition of screen materials must be made in a manner that is reversible and does not damage any historic features. New porches and decks shall not be new porches and decks shall not be added to a front elevation if one never existed. Historic houses in New Hill, which is a section within the overlay area. Original stoop elements such as gable or shed projecting roofs and stoop columns must be retained. These elements must be decorative material, metal or wood post, and turn columns as appropriate. Adding a stoop that was not originally present is not allowed. Enclosing front stoops is not allowed. Enclosing side stoops with the same siding as on the main body of the house is allowed. New construction in Old Hill shall have a front porch. Porch columns, railings, balustrades, and detailing should reflect the simple details of the original house. New construction in New Hill shall have a front stoop and a side stoop. The stoop roof shall be front gable or shed. Railings shall be decorative metal or wood post. All right, so when we get to 4M, this language comes directly from our 2021 Land Development Code for establishing accessory dwelling units. Accessory dwelling unit shall be located only on a lot containing a single-family detached structure. B, only one accessory dwelling unit shall be permitted per single-family dwelling. C, if the accessory dwelling unit is located within the same structure as the principal dwelling, the principal dwelling shall not be altered so as to appear to contain more than one dwelling unit. D, a manufactured home is not to be used as an accessory dwelling unit. And E, the gross floor area of the accessory dwelling shall not exceed 750 square feet or contain more than 1/4 of the heated floor area of the principal single-family dwelling, whichever is greater. All right. And again, if at any point this language, and I know I'm just reading something that's right before you, but it kind of puts it on the record for those who are watching or maybe tuning in later. But if at any point I read any language that y'all have a question about or disagree with, or just want to discuss, please let me know. Okay, so it looks like we got a bit of a typo going forward, so yes. So,
Our letters
but I can make
change
this
here.
work here in a minute. So the next one. Okay. So the next one under landscaping and screening should be item N. And the street trees shall be large canopy trees that are 40 to 50 feet in height and maturity. Smaller or ornamental trees should be planted nearer to the primary building. Shrubs should be limited to foundation plantings and shall not be more than 10 feet in height. Yards shall be grass or low plantings. Front yards shall not be paved or gravelled. All plantings, and this is one where this bullet point, Mr. Metz took note of this. This should actually read, all plantings shall be native and non-invasive species.
We're gonna change the word should.
To shall.
All right, thank you.
Front yard fences shall be constructed with wooden pickets, woven wire in historic patterns, welded wire mesh or chain link. Front yard fences must be no higher than 42 inches in height. Okay. So next one is O, which is impervious surface coverage. And again, we didn't put anything here because it would default to the development standards as found in the 2021 Land Development Code, and also working with our county engineer to address those. That language will be forthcoming when we bring this back to you, the specifics of that language. All right, so the next one is P, item P, paving requirements or limitations. Driveways and curb cuts shall be no more than 12 feet wide. Driveways shall be located to the side of the lot and must not be directly in front of a house. A shared driveway with the neighboring property is allowed. The shared driveway shall not be wider than 12 feet. Front yard shall not be paved or gravelled. So, kind of looking at this, and these are some of the items, I asked that y'all kind of pay attention to it, and we can have some discussion on. So I'm looking at what you have before you, the third bullet where it says driveway shall be located on the side of the lot and must not be directly in front of a house. I believe may be appropriate in some of these cases that, at least it's understood, and we may need to add the language that this may require some form of variance, because there could be a situation where, due to the width of the lot, any new construction may not allow for a driveway to be placed on the side, and the only place may be directly in front of the home. So that is something that either it can be a variance by the Board of Zoning Appeals, or if the Planning Commission desires, we can come up with some alternative language for this particular section.
Mr. Price, do we know if there are any homes like this in the neighborhood currently that have a driveway front? I feel like the goal here is to retain the historic nature of this neighborhood. Yet, are we willing to get anyone in trouble?
Yeah, so the
Their
historic
existing
nature
structure.
of it is having them on the side. Well, all the houses predate, automobiles. So the pattern that developed historically through the neighborhood is having it on the side. The only one off the top of my head that I can think of, there's one house in the neighborhood that has their entire front yard paved. So that's the only one that I can think of. But for the most part, the character of the neighborhood reflects having those driveways to the side of the house.
Okay.
And historically, there not being a driveway in the front of the house is due to the leading into the front of the house was generally a sidewalk going from the street to the front door, is the historic pattern of the neighborhood.
Okay. See, Dover and Virginia Street. That.
while we have you up here, state your name again for the record.
Yes, apologies. My name is Mark Rydell Hoover, the neighborhood planner.
Thank you.
No,
Follow-up question. As we look at all these line items,
yeah.
are we going to see many neighbors get in trouble for deviating from the historic pattern as is laid out now?
I believe for the most part, well, I'll let Mr. Price correct me if I'm wrong, but for the most part, this will mainly be paying attention to anything like a new addition, a new build, alterations, things like anything they would need a permit for is when we would enforce these kind of things.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's safe to say any type of regulation that's enacted by the county could have some, less than desirable consequences. So there may be a case or two where these regulations may somehow prohibit the development of a site. But again, that's why there means either by the Board of Zoning Appeals or a variance or some additional language that we incorporate to address those. Or in some cases, it may be we just have to go back and re-look at this to see if we are imposing some undue hardship on property owners and their ability to develop a site. I think as Mark has stated, I think for the existing homes or making additions, that may be one thing. But I think, when you start looking at new builds, to make sure that they can incorporate these standards into developing the site.
Price, do we have any questions at this point from the commission?
Yes, Mr. Chair, question to you, Mr. Price.
Commissioner
And I
Grant.
apologize if you've answered this last month or the month before, but we use the term historic all throughout here. Is there a definition of historic in here?
I was gonna save that for later. Mark, I'll let you.
Yeah, so when we're talking about historic for these guidelines and the overlay, it's all based on the National Historic Register, for which Olympia neighborhood is a neighborhood listed on the Historic Register. So the houses that were built within the time of the period of significance, that being in the Old Hill area of, I believe, early 1900s and New Hill in the 1940s. So those would be what we consider the historic homes that were built during those eras.
Thank you.
Any other questions at this point, Commission? Okay, Mr. Price, want to continue on here?
Okay, so the next item would be Q, which would be exterior lighting. Exterior lights shall only shine directly onto the property to which they are attached. Lights shall be shielded so that they do not shine upwards or onto adjacent properties. Next up. R, required features on a front facade. Required front features on historic houses must be maintained according to the house type. Next one, S, uses. And again, apologize for not having the M1 or the HI zoning designations on here, but if you look on page 41, you will see all of the permitted uses for R4, R6, and the neighborhood mixed use, which is MU1. Now,
Price, this was taken directly from our 2021 code,
Yes.
correct?
yes. And one of the things we will look at, this may be an opportunity, and they want to look at this a little more, whether all of the uses that are allowed here are appropriate. But if we do, then we wouldn't identify these as R4, R6 necessarily, but I think that's something that we could look at for the uses if you feel that some of these may not be appropriate at this time. Okay. All right, so we'll go to page 42, which we'll start with T, which will be item T, which will be views of or from specific locations. New additions shall not overwhelm or overshadow the existing building. They shall appear subordinate and be located in inconspicuously as possible. New additions shall be located behind the rear facade of the historic building whenever possible. Aligning an addition with the front facade or having a new addition projected in front of the original front facade is not allowed. Additions that are visible from the street shall have windows that are the same proportion to the walls that follow the same patterns as those on the existing house. The addition shall have similar floor-to-floor heights and compatible bay divisions with those of the existing house. Also, two-story additions to one-story homes shall be built at the rear of the historic building to preserve the original one-story character. The historic building's appearance as viewed from the street shall appear relatively unaltered. Whenever possible, the roof form of the new building shall not be visible above the ridge line of the original roof when the front of the historic building is viewed from the street. Next one is U. Again, this section it is something that will take place from our Richland County land through our Richland County Public Works Department. So we're just gonna stick with the language that's requirement for basically development that will fall within any of these areas. V, which would be demolition of structures. Demolishing a historic structure within the Olympia Mill Village to build a new structure shall always be in order of last resort. Demolition or relocation of any resource which is historical and/or architectural significance shall not be considered unless the resource constitutes a hazard to the safety of the public or the occupants as determined by the building official. County planners shall convene a meeting of the appropriate county departments to look for viable alternatives to demolition. The purpose is to see if there are monies or resources available to the owner to alleviate the issue identified by the building inspector. If deemed appropriate in the circumstances, a licensed structural engineer familiar with historic resource preservation shall present a report to the county outlining the action needed for stabilization. Next bullet point, no contributing historic structure shall be moved out of the neighborhood. No contributing historic structure shall be repositioned on this lot unless there is historic evidence of a different location on that lot. Next bullet point, a structure being moved into the neighborhood should be compatible in style. Now, there's that word again, so I think that may be shall, compatible in style. The proposed siding for a relocated main building shall be consistent and compatible with the existing structures on the same block face. This includes the setbacks, orientation, and spacing. Additional requirements. So that would be W. For doors, historic buildings, it's under doors. For historic buildings, enlarging or enclosing original door openings on the front elevations is not allowed. Moving or adding doors is not allowed. However, restoring original doors or original door openings that have been enclosed is encouraged. Retain and repair, the next bullet point, retain and repair original doors, door surrounds, and transoms using materials that match the original. If replacement is required due to deterioration, the replacement shall match the style, materials, and finish of the original. Solid wood doors with recessed panels and frames are appropriate for the neighborhood. Steel and hollow wood doors are not allowed for main entries. For historic houses in New Hill, doors are allowed to be more decorative with light openings and with aluminum or wood screen doors. Next bullet point, doors and in addition shall complement those of the existing house. More latitude in the design of the doors can occur if not visible from the street. Next bullet point is when new builds, front doors shall be visible from the street. Solid wood doors with or without lights shall correspond to the style and design of the original houses in that area. Doors with panels and recesses are most appropriate in the neighborhood. Flat unadorned doors are not allowed. Wood or aluminum screen doors are only allowed in New Hill.
Bryce? Does this pertain to garage doors as well? This doors?
You know, I'm not sure if any of the homes in the Olympia area actually have garage doors. I think it mostly carports or parking in the rear of the structure. Yeah, we can take a look at that and we can bring that information back to you, but I don't believe that you're gonna find many garages on as in within the Olympia area.
I'm also going to suggest we have section H, which says exterior building materials and colors. Maybe a section on doors can go after that instead of in the very back and additional requirements. I mean, was there a reason why doors, and it looks like your next bullet point, windows?
Yeah, that's how they fall. So there's the sequential within the NCO of the Land Development Code. So when you
Okay.
get to that one, that's what it is.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, Commissioner Durant?
Ms. Price, what is LITE? It's used with light openings or with the door without lights. What is that?
Yes, you want to show? We're gonna turn it over to Mr. Delays because we actually had that discussion
Yes.
as a staff.
We did have to look this up because I had not seen this term, but essentially it's where you have on a door, there's generally, you might have a window or some other kind of feature, maybe like mid-center. And then at the very top of it, there's a piece of wood and then a piece of glass above it. That's the light. That's correct. I'll pull up an example as well. So here's a pretty good example showing that top part with the transom light. And I guess it also seems to be applying to some of the other windows as well.
Fancy door? page.
All right, we get to the windows. For windows, historic buildings, enlarging or enclosing original window openings on the front elevation is not allowed. Moving or adding new window openings to the front elevation is not allowed. However, restoring original window openings that have been enclosed is encouraged. Oh. Retain and repair original windows, window surrounds, and screens using materials that match the original. If replacement is required due to deterioration, replacement of windows shall maintain the same size, profile, and configuration, finish, and details as the original windows. During installation of replacement windows, the jambs must be recessed from the front facade at the same depth as the original windows. Next bullet point, storm windows on either the outside or inside can provide increased energy efficiencies without damaging historic windows. Interior storm windows are encouraged in order to maintain the historic exterior appearance. If storm windows are installed, they must be installed in a manner that they do not damage historic jambs and surrounds. Next up, bullet point, windows on New Hill houses can have decorative shutters provided they are wood and compatible with shutters on surrounding houses. The next bullet point, additions. Windows shall emulate the windows of the historic structure in terms of fenestration. Anybody? Pattern, size, configuration, profile, and finish, especially if they are visible from the street. Windows located on the rear or not visible from the street need not match the original window patterns or sizes. However, rear windows must be the same material and be compatible with the historic windows. Windows on New Hill houses can have decorative shutters, provided they are wood and compatible with shutters on surrounding houses. New builds. Next bullet point, new builds. Windows shall reflect the patterns of the windows in historic buildings within the neighborhood. The vertical shape of the windows from the wall surface shall be similar to those in historic buildings within the neighborhood, so that shadow lines are significant and reflect the historic character. The type of the window shall relate to the architectural style of the original houses. Chimneys, original chimneys must be maintained. If chimneys are added, they must be located behind the ridge line and shall not be visible on the front of the house as seen from the street in Old Hill. In New Hill, it is appropriate to have windows visible on the front facade. And so for some of these items, what we will also try to do, again, to kind of go along with the theme of our land development code, is also show some pictures to kind of give an idea of what it is that these particular sections are aiming for. New construction styles. Architectural styles of new builds must be similar to the building types that are historically present within Olympia Mill Village. Historical styles that were not present shall not be used as a basis for new construction. Contemporary design and style can be appropriate if the building respects the scale, massing, proportions, patterns, and materials prevalent among the contributing houses within the neighborhood. Accessibility, ramps, lifts, and accessible entrances shall be designed in such a way to avoid damage to a character-defining features of a historic building. And parking. If a curb cut already exists, an additional curb cut must not be added. Parking in the front of the house shall be limited to parking in the driveway. No parking on the front yard except on football game days.
Historically, they've been able to park there. And for accessibility, can ramps come and go as needed?
Yeah.
Like, are there going to be historic ramps?
No. So I think we get in trouble when we start dictating that. Again, the intent is you can have the ramp, just don't damage the structure if possible. All right, so that's it for those items. As stated, we'll be happy to entertain any questions or discussion points that you may have for this. But we would do look to kind of clean this up a bit, but also show you how it will look as similar to our land development code. Mr. Duffy.
Question from Commissioner Duffy.
Mr. Price, quick question. So you mentioned an architectural review body or group. Is that a internal body to the council, or is it something you go out and retain an architectural firm and then you're gonna look for a line item or a budget item to do that?
More
from
than
council?
likely, it will be something that's appointed by council, probably made up of, we're trying to avoid staff necessarily being a part of it, because we have such oversights, for uses and structures already. So, we'll probably be, made up part, community, and whoever other, areas that the county feels is most appropriate, for making those determinations.
Great, thanks.
Other questions?
Here.
Commissioner Grady, yes.
Yeah, so I will say I took the occasion of Mr. Price reading through the bullet points as constructed to kind of jot down some thoughts that came to mind. I would certainly welcome feedback from the rest of the commission on any or all of these. In terms of my personal thoughts on where it might be helpful for this to go in terms of direction. I think the first thing that comes to mind is if we're using words that we have to look up because we don't understand what they mean architecturally, I think it would be helpful to the maximum extent possible if that could be rewritten in common language such that a homeowner or other concerned citizen would have a sense of what we're talking about.
Yeah, and I agree with you on that. And that's another reason why we will also try to incorporate some exhibits so that it'll be right there in front of you. So if you don't know exactly what it means, you'll know what it looks like. So, but I agree with you.
Okay, that'd be helpful. I think it might be I think the thing I'm worried about is that while we're all here and we all have good intent of what this is supposed to do, I have certainly seen bodies like a future design board or other entity who kind of go off on their own direction and become very stringent in enforcement in a way that is not necessarily in line with the text. So I want us to think through and would ask staff to think about, are there ways that we can ensure that any requirements are written in a way such that they do not create mission creep or otherwise are set in a way that if there is a matter of interpretation, it is decided in favor of the property owner rather than in favor of some additional strictures that this board were to create. I don't know if there's precedent from other local governments in South Carolina. I like I said, I fear that this could get out of hand.
Yes, sir.
That would be one thought of mine. Another thing that I think would be helpful, I'm not sure what the requirements are on this already in South Carolina statute, if any, but would there be some sort of notification requirement such that if someone purchases a home in this district that they are aware that there are limitations on how their property can be remodeled or otherwise dealt with?
I'm not sure how that is something that we could do. Again, going forward, from this point, we will be notifying all current property owners of these additional standards essentially, that will be found within the overlay. And we'll hope that they would, kind of pass that on, but I don't know if, and this is not isolated to this particular overlay. There are a number of things we have where, how do you get it out so that the community or future property owners, buyers, investors will know, okay, in addition, here's your property, your property is a little different, from some of the standards. We've had this, occur within, we had the last one we did was the Crane Creek, master plan, which eventually became its own zoning designation, so it made it a little different. But yeah, there are a number of people buying properties and they were used to seeing certain things. And then they realized they couldn't do it, even though there were other uses out there, right in the area they were looking to develop. We just, right now, we're not sure how you get that out, to ensure that people are protected when they're buying. But what we can do is just notify everyone from the beginning that as a property owner, this is what you have.
Yeah, so I think that's a good start. I just, obviously you don't want somebody to buy in and then feel like they weren't informed, and particularly if that person's gonna cause drama, for lack of a better word. And then a couple more things, then I'll be quiet and let the rest of the commission opine. I think one thing that would be helpful is, obviously this plan was developed with community input, but community input is often not necessarily grounded in the trade-offs. So it is one thing for, and again, I wasn't there when this neighborhood plan, but, it is one thing to say it would be nice for a neighborhood to look like X. It is another thing to say we want the government to make the neighborhood look like X, or that we are okay with it looking like X, even if that has additional costs that may be incurred in the future. So I just want us to think through, and this could be something that happens in the meetings that you've discussed, to ensure that we're actually reflecting what the community actually wants, not what we think we heard they wanted. So I would just kind of put that out there as something to think about when planning those meetings. And then finally, I would just want us to think about, from a public policy perspective, evaluating what happens to this neighborhood over time and trying to determine what impacts from a property value standpoint or a property turnover standpoint this designation may or may not have in how the neighborhood matures. So I would just want us to, I'm a policy wonk, I'm gonna throw that out there as something to think about. So I have rambled on long enough, and I will give back. Thank you.
Commissioner Grady, thank you for your thoughts, and input on that. Any other comments from commissioners based off that, or from what Mr. Price just educated us on? Mr. Price, do you have anything further on this?
Sorry. No, sir. I mean, again, thank you, Mr. Grady, for those thoughts. And anything else that anybody wants to offer, or any questions you may have?
Mr. Price, what would be the next step again?
Yeah, so the next step is for us to kind of clean this up, essentially. Clean this up and to show you what this would look like potentially in a land development code. It's for an overlay. And then we'll bring that back before you, for you to, again, essentially review and have your additional comments to it. And then from that point on, if everything seems to be okay, we would then take this forward to the community. We have to send out notifications to all property owners. That's another reason why we're gonna probably put a month in between. Let's say, for example, you take this in May, it won't come back again. July, looks like, because it's gonna take time. We have to give notification to the property owners. We also need to secure sites and have a number of community meetings. We don't wanna do just that one meeting, Wednesday, hey, there might be church night, or Thursday night. So something might be happening, or, along that area that people aren't gonna be able to make it. So we at least wanna have at least 2 to 3, meetings within the community first, and then once we can then compile some of the input that we receive from them, then we'll look to bring this back to the planning commission with the original draft, but also we can put in some language that actually states or identifies what some of the comments, concerns that have come about from meeting with the community. Yeah, one of the things I'm hoping, and this is just me, I'm hoping that we do get good, participation from all within the community, as many people as possible. I mean, not just the supporters of this overlay, but we want to hear from all sides of this. So that's one of the reasons why we kind of want to make sure that we have an opportunity to reach out, because often what's the term, we hear from the loud minority for something versus the silent majority on a lot of things. And then so that may eventually go back to something I think Commissioner Grady alluded to, when then later on they come in and say, I didn't know I could do this, or what do you mean I can't? I have to do it this way, because they didn't speak up when this was originally brought before them.
Thank you, Mr. Price. We want to give the public plenty of time to speak up on this, hear from it. And any time that we have something on our other items as an action, correct me if I'm wrong, this is where we could get public input.
Yes.
Neighbors can come out and speak.
Yes, correct. And so that's something else that we will look to promote, and when we go to the community meetings, is to let them know when these items will be taken to the planning commission for action. And we'll also try to keep a ledger of the citizens that attend, and also their contact information, probably email addresses, so that we can contact them and email them about what is happening with this, and that way they'll be able to follow up either by attending, maybe sending in there's some comments written, which do you have the other ones? Okay. Some comments that are written to the planning commission for your consideration. Yeah, I'm sorry, I just asked Mr. Delage. I think we have those. We did receive an email from the We Are Olympia, and they wanted just to kind of express some of their comments regarding this overlay proposal, which would include some other items that they would ask that you consider going forward with your recommendations. At this point, we wanted just to kind of use specifically what we found either through our Richland County Land Development Code, the Olympia Mill Architectural Design Guidelines, or the Capital City Mill District Plan, because those were adopted. Those items had been adopted by council. So we wanted to incorporate those first, and now we can start listening to, the community, in this particular case, the We Are Olympia, to see about adding those other items to this language. She's gonna get them.
Will you make sure that gets out to us?
Yes, actually,
Thank you.
by the time we finish, I think Ms. Gooden will have, we actually did a printout of it also, so we'll be able to hand those out to you. And we'll start also sending those to you electronically also.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Hilaire.
Just a quick question for staff. Based on what I heard Mr. Grady say, and what I think I understand, if a purchaser is getting a property in this neighborhood and they're not aware, or if the seller doesn't make them aware of these different guidelines or rules that may be in place, does the county website have any of this information kind of flagged? Because sometimes purchasers as well as agents will use county resources to try to gain as much information as possible. And I wasn't sure if there was a way to designate, whether it's with a PDF attachment that you can get to that shows an architectural design guideline for a particular neighborhood, if there's an overlay. I know we use it quite often to see whether properties are in wetlands or flood zones, or what the current zoning designations are. I was wondering if there was a way to maybe indicate that, whether it's just a line item. I don't know what what goes into establishing what gets on the county website, but maybe a designation that shows that, hey, this has an overlay or some kind of, architectural guidelines. So the question is that an item on the county website, or is that something that could be added as an additional?
That's something we'll look into, and, you know, I understand exactly what some of your concerns. And so we can definitely at least promote any adopted language on the website for a certain period of time. I'm not sure if when we're looking at our GIS, that we will be able to, specifically state what it is you can and cannot do on this property. However, if the overlay designation, which Mr. DeLage has is on, and it will identify this as it says the Capital City Mill District Plan, and we'll just have to work with our IT department to see if we can come up with some way, whether it be by when you click on a parcel, and if you just randomly click on a parcel, tell them if you don't mind. Yeah. So when you look at this, maybe there could be a particular row placed on this. As I think as Mr. Smith was saying, we can establish some type of hyperlink, but I'm not sure if we're going to necessarily have this hyperlink on this webpage, because they're really limited on some of the things that that we can't place on this.
And I wasn't even
Yeah.
suggesting that the actual guideline itself necessarily be placed on there, but much like you're saying, a hyperlink, or just even knowing that, these guidelines do exist, and if we could hyperlink to it and do more digging there. But I didn't realize this part was on here, but certainly something along these lines to help identify where this property lies.
Yeah. So one of the things we've been working with our with our IT department, along with our assessors and others, is what you're looking at before you, if you take a look at the parcel information, at one time we actually had a section, it was called, at least a row, that said secondary zoning, because there were some parcels that actually had a split zoning on them. So we wanted to make sure we included both of those. So maybe along those lines that we could put something on there that, Olympia Mill overlay, standards, or something along that line where somebody can go to that. Fine.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Taylor. And to piggyback on that, the county did put out a good application for the 2021 zoning that had some good overlay options on there. I know the military overlay would show up, environmental concerns too, so maybe the historic overlay could be an option. I'm not sure if you're going to continue to use that application. Back to Rich. It was a good feature.
Okay, and looks like we'll meet with the team and IT and everyone to see what they can offer to us about trying to incorporate this.
Any other thoughts on this overlay district? Good discussion tonight. Not hearing any. I'd like to move on to, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think we might have talked a little bit about this last time after the meeting. Is anybody interested in doing a little tour of the Olympia area? We can talk about potentially getting a nice, just depending on how many people come, get a nice little bus or something, and just kind of ride around and just actually see the Olympia area and what's everything, all of the neighborhoods and properties that will be a part of this overlay.
I love that idea, commissioners.
Interested?
Yes.
All right, well, so we'll start to look into trying to get that together, and we'll send out something for everyone, some potential dates and times for everyone to go.
Great. Bryce. Shall we move on to item number 7
Yes, sir.
in our agenda? That's the chairman's report. Just want to say thank you, commissioners, for your time and effort you invest each month in this commission, traveling and reviewing cases and participating in great discussions like this one tonight. Also, to add on, I want to share that this past month I met with Mr. Jensen to discuss preliminary efforts that will be needed from us in regards to updating the comprehensive plan. Please be prepared for us to likely have more than one meeting a month once this process kicks off. I can imagine at least one work session a month as needed. I will create a Google spreadsheet and share it out so we can use it to block out dates for these. and also for a planning commission training session. Staff, please let me know if there's anything I can do to help prepare for this summer's training session, which last year was in August.
Yes. Yeah, as stated previously, we're looking for topics that the planning commission would like covered during these training sessions. I think we've done a number over the years, trying to kind of get those together, and also the speakers, but, we would really like to hear from the planning commission. If there's something that, maybe things we've taken up, or maybe things that you see coming down the pipeline, that maybe we can get, some additional speakers to come in, maybe additional training or something along those lines. But we would just like to make sure we hear from you, if possible.
Comments on that, commissioners, from previous experiences with the training sessions that we've had? I've always gained some good information from those, which has helped me better in my role, so thank you. I think as we look at the comp plan in the future, any topics that can help us serve the county best. And that's all I have for that. So we can now move on to the planning director's report. Mr. Price?
Yeah, this time there was nothing to report.
With that, that moves us on to number 9, which is adjournment. The chair would like to make a motion for adjournment. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from many. All right, Taylor, we'll say Taylor. All right. Mr. Price, please take a roll via show of hands. Looks unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Price. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night. We're dismissed.